Again, good morning, everybody. Um, Before we start, can you just quickly, with a short yes or no with the microphone, confirm that you can see the screen that is being shared? It's the front screen of the landing screen of the webinar. Just confirm for me that you can see the screen. Has a title, Designing a Space Mission and Satellite in Cameroon.
Yeah, no worries. We can see your screen correctly and hear you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so today we're going to explore not only what it means, but why it is important to be able to design a space mission and a satellite in Cameroon, and what capabilities there currently are to do this. But it is of no real importance if we don't know why one would bother to design a space mission and a satellite in a country like Cameroon. But first, before diving into the presentation, I would like to draw your attention to the need that has been made really obvious with the situation in Ukraine, the need for countries to have a better sense of autonomy and sovereignty when it comes to strategic resources and infrastructure. Within this context, only that fact should make one to think or put something as strategic as space infrastructure a little bit higher up the priority list. I want to start with why we need such things. Why would owning space infrastructure, why would designing and building a satellite locally be important? Why would it be necessary to be able to do that with a high enough level of sovereignty? So we're going to be going one sector at a time. So what's the value of space data and space infrastructure in various sectors? Well, we're going to address these. The point is for everyone in attendance to think about their own areas of activity. You know, we're putting a general presentation of why space data and space infrastructure is important for different sectors, and every actor either participating live in this webinar or who will be watching the recording later can then use that as a basis to look at how their challenges they are currently facing in their industry, more importantly in the private sector. They can look at their challenges, their difficulties, and think, if this is the case, if this is all what space infrastructure can make possible, how can having access to satellite data, having access to a satellite that is owned by the country where you operate or owned by a company that is in the country where you operate, how can that help you solve your problems or address your difficulties? All right, so that being said, I'm going to proceed to showing the different sectors and how space data and infrastructure can be of use in those sectors. Let us start with agriculture. In a country like Cameroon, agriculture is of central importance. And with the current situation in Ukraine, with the limited or near zero access to the resources necessary for basic things like bread, you realize that flour needs to be manufactured locally at industrial scale, which is not yet the case. Having access to satellite imagery that you control will definitely help the industrialization of the agricultural products that will lead to a better independence, so to speak, of imported products when it comes to uh, basic food items, things that everybody consumes and that is expected to be at a very low cost, but that happens to become suddenly expensive when resources that we don't control are suddenly limited by factors that are out of our control, unfortunately. So it becomes easier to monitor crop growth and health, to analyze, the fields and detect whatever anomalies, optimize yields, and of course, monitor deforestation, because it is not an easy thing to do, to monitor deforestation. It is somewhat risky if you're going with boots on the ground. But if you have access to satellite data, of course, you can do that. Now, I'm not saying that with all the satellites currently in orbit, it's not possible to get some of this data, but the better resolution information will have to be bought, and you would hope to always have the possibility to buy this information. In a country like Cameroon, if you are importing technology, you are paying a small tax for that. So it costs money to import technology. So having a local supplier of this technology will cost less. Now, if the local supplier is also buying from someone else to resell, then the charges of this technology are on the local supplier. However, if the local supplier owns, even if only partially, the infrastructure from which the data comes, then suddenly it becomes more affordable to access this satellite data that will help the agricultural sector. This applies for all the sectors that I'm mentioning, of course. If we look at civil administration, how do we monitor and manage our natural resources? It's not an easy thing to do if you don't use satellite data. How do you monitor infrastructure and urban development? Infrastructure development and urban development are things that take time. Yes, one can imagine flying drones every now and again, or helicopters, but once you start stretching this over a few years, it starts being a bit heavy on the pocket. However, with one satellite, with actually one satellite, not the constellation, one, with the right resolution, this can be achieved, right? This can be achieved. If it is a locally owned satellite, then even better. How do we manage our disasters in a fast and efficient manner? Because we have heard, and I stay within the Cameroon context, but other countries face these things. Landslides are not a thing of Cameroon only, right? Floods are not. We see these things. But unfortunately, we cannot respond fast enough, right? And saving lives is really a matter of being able to respond fast enough, saving lives and property. How do we monitor key popular events and celebrations? During the AFCON in Cameroon, we had a very tragic event at the Olembe Stadium in Yaoundé, where there was a stampede. There was a stampede that cost lives, unfortunately. Now, if there were a way to monitor continuously what I call popular events and celebrations, where it's important to be able to study crowd dynamics and over time design ways to protect these same crowds. I suppose that we might have, even if this played only one small role in mitigating such catastrophe, definitely satellite data would have contributed, not while it was happening, but before, over time, to build the best strategies in order to prevent this. Because you have to understand that it is a contextual thing to do. How one would handle a crowd in Paris is not how one would handle a crowd in Yaoundé or Douala, right? There are local realities that may not be obvious on a case by case, but over a few cases, they start emerging, right? And these things can be effectively studied if you have satellite data, which is easily accessible. How about defense? I think this is the most obvious one, right? How do you guarantee territorial situational awareness? What do I mean? Is who is who is at my door, right? As a country, who is at my door? How do I know who is at my door? How do I know who comes in and goes out? This has to do with the security of the country. Infrastructure change detection is important because this is one factor that allows certain countries to know whether certain kind of weaponry is being developed in another country. And I don't want to cite specific countries, but if you know how to analyze the change in infrastructure in different places, you can tell a lot about what's going on, and this can help in securing national security if we can do this for the infrastructure change detection within the borders of Cameroon. Now, how about borders and maritime domain surveillance? In our waters, who is in our waters? Who occupies these spaces? Are they there legally? What activities are they carrying out? Are these activities being carried out legally? Satellite data can hugely contribute. In fact, this is one of the fields where satellite data is very is essential. It is indeed complementary to other technologies, but it allows to achieve a lot. Of course, it's more or less obvious that this contributes to terrorism activity monitoring. In a country like Cameroon, it's no news anymore that there's a lot of Boko Haram related activities up north with around the borders of with Nigeria, and there's a lot of activity also with the entire campaign against terrorism in Africa in a big scale, with the borders along the borders with Chad. So it's not easy, around those areas, and definitely satellite data can contribute to monitor such activities. Also, it's important to understand that while I'm talking about Cameroon, this is something that is affecting borders. And should Cameroon have its own satellite, it is, how can I say, it is with more sovereignty that it will access this data, and depending on its relationship with its neighbors, make this data available to neighboring countries, and perhaps also assist some neighboring countries to protect their own borders in a collective effort as the fight against terrorism. Now, how about education and research? First, it's important. It's important to have a sense of African pride because of such infrastructure. It is a point not to be neglected. In fact, it is such central point that it by itself can boost the level of innovation that would result from having an active satellite in orbit. If you notice, the more advanced nations, when it comes to space science and technology, access to space, autonomous access to space, autonomous and sovereign access to space is a point of pride. It's a huge point of pride. Every country that has either privately owned or state owned satellites or space infrastructure of any sort use that as a point of pride. It's extremely important. It's extremely important for it to have something that will make the young people to dream. Very important. And this can highly contribute in a country like Cameroon, where a lot of African pride altogether, not only national pride, is attached to sports and arts. You know, technology more in general, and in particular satellite technology that is homegrown or at least home owned would really boost this aspect. Of course, if we own the infrastructure, if we have the infrastructure, then we can provide free access in a timely manner of really high resolution imagery, for example, because there are other forms of data that one can get besides images. But really high resolution that would not otherwise be freely available, because there is freely available data out there, satellite data, a lot of it, right? But the free stuff has its limitations. Once you start looking for images that are of better resolutions, they come at a cost, and it's always cheaper to offer such images locally, right? So if you can make this data available to researchers and to students and to institutions locally, so that they can use it for research purposes, you can only imagine the level of research outputs that can come from it. Besides that, you have research towards future missions that is also enabled by the fact that there is such infrastructure in space. You have hands-on and up-to-date training in relevant fields. And of course, you can popularize the data for the general population just so everyone in the country can have some level of access to the data, just because they are just because it's theirs. All right. And it's important to be able to do this. It happens in, I think, at all the countries so far that I know, either privately or state owned, that countries that have either privately or state owned satellite infrastructure have some level of data accessible to the population of those countries alone. And because there needs to be something that will be reserved for the locals, it would be good to have such a thing as well, over and above everything else that is shared at the continental level and globally. This is not so obvious to see, but in finance, investment, and business, it's very important to be able to predict and anticipate new markets. If you look at the level of the speed, of economic development, the rate at which countries are developing in Africa, Cameroon not excluded, in various sectors so fast: mining, construction, different technologies that would require different raw materials, between the development of different infrastructures and inter and intra national road infrastructure that is being developed. All of these things are important for the prediction and the anticipation of new market, also to monitor portfolio of assets and analyze opaque markets, which this is a black box in in most African economies. In Cameroon, the informal sector is a mystery. It's really it's these opaque markets that where there's a lot of opportunity, but nobody really knows how they work. Satellite data can play a huge role, with this. If I take a simple example, of open market dynamics, and when I talk about open markets, is in the sense of our markets where a person would go to buy vegetables or tomatoes or fresh meat or things like this, fresh fish. There are a lot of them spread all over. By simply analyzing the population, people movements in and out, and the dynamics of agglomeration hotspots in the market throughout only one city, one can really have a good understanding of what goes on in the market. And this is important. It's very important because there are lots of investment opportunities in these said opaque markets, but investors just don't know enough, to feel comfortable with any level of risk, and this can really hugely contribute to allowing investors to have a better understanding of these markets and therefore feel more comfortable to invest, right? And of course, you can discover unidentified opportunities. So this is very important. Again, these don't come across as straightforward. When you think about a satellite in space, you don't necessarily imagine that from a finance, investment, and business point of view. In these terms, there is a need, right? There's a need. So, how about environment, forest, and land? In Cameroon, there's the RED Plus data verification that can highly be enhanced with satellite data. In fact, imagery would really help. Kazakhstan land records can really be enhanced with satellite imagery, especially regularly available satellite imagery. It's very important. I mean, in a country like in a country like Cameroon, it's not unusual for a person to have their land constructed upon, right? Someone else will build and have their development take part of your land, and only when you go out in the piece of land you have some remote place can you really notice such things, and it becomes a a battle altogether, and also selling the same portion of land a number of times to a number of people. It's very easy to mitigate if you have a regular access to satellite imagery. Very to monitor these things and avoid long and lengthy and painful, legal battles. It's really useful in that sense. Changes in land use and illegal forestry, as I mentioned before, and wildlife exploitation. These things can be monitored with satellite data quite effectively. And when it comes to wildlife exploitation, I would like to stretch also to fishing, with not only in a country like Cameroon, there is quite some fishing activity, but also in neighboring countries, right? It is not so easy to get a good understanding of what we have as quote unquote wildlife across, land and sea and ocean. But it's a dynamic that needs to be understood if one wants to be able to predict whether or not local populations will have access to either food or some of the protected species that we would like to have around for our children and grandchildren to see, and also to preserve natural ecosystems. Satellite data can hugely enhance this. Another not so obvious one is insurance. To understand and model and predict risk, especially around infrastructure portfolio, to detect fraud, to verify assets, improve claim processing speed and accuracy, and service value of money. I think this is also easy to see, at least after everything I've presented so far. The aspect of insurance is a little easier to understand. How satellite data can provide better insurance products. It has to be affordable, and one huge factor of affordability is that it be provided by a local entity that has enough ownership of the actual infrastructure collecting the data to be able to provide these products and services at an affordable price. But there is a need in the insurance sector as well. So what expertise does NMD have? It turns out that NMD currently, as I speak, is the only private company currently registered in Cameroon that has the capability to design space missions, to do phase 0 and phase A analysis. I'll tell you what it's about now, and to provide a certain level of training. There are companies abroad that offers some of these services. Locally, at the moment, this is the only one. It is, of course, so-called strategic advantage, but towards where we're going, what can NMD, Nanosatellite Missions Design Limited, provide in a country like Cameroon? Well, the design of space missions and satellites. So with the needs of the various sectors that I mentioned earlier, NMD can design what is phase 0 and phase A. These are the phases where the needs are analyzed, the spacecraft itself is designed, and okay, the spacecraft itself is designed, and there's already a first technical feasibility that is done. So by the time you finish phase 0 and phase A, you know a lot, including how many, including the team that you will need to build your satellite and your space mission. You also know who to talk to in order to, in terms of partnerships, because we could partner with other African entities, and we could also partner with international European and American and Indian, etc. entities. But you need to know the right partner to have. Right? So, and one cannot launch a satellite on the African continent yet. So we would need to find someone from outside Africa who could launch the satellite once we're done building it. The strategic and technical advice for phases B to F. So basically, once you're done designing it, you build it, and then you launch it and you operate it. These are the next phases B to F. NMD would then provide strategic and technical advice for those phases. So effectively, NMD can lead a space mission, a Cameroonian space mission, full cycle. And with regards to training, NMD can provide training in concurrent engineering, in space mission and satellite design, in space mission management, and in space mission operations. In fact, these trainings are already available. And it's important to be able to count on local human capacity. There's going to be need for international technology transfer. There's going to be a need for external expertise for many years to come, but it has to be complementary to local human capacity. So this human capacity needs to be developed, and we can hugely contribute to that. In fact, we can also help to design curricula for various university institutions that currently exist so that they can help local engineers, but not only, and managers and other experts in various fields to be ready for the local space activity, to be able to seize these opportunities also from an entrepreneurial point of view. This is an example of our certificate of completion. So once you go through our training, you obtain a certificate of completion that looks like this. And this is a real one for now Dr. Mohamed Kazim, who took our training when he was busy completing his PhD. He's completed it now, and we now work together on a couple of artificial intelligence related problems. But this is really how we operate. If there's a possibility to create a network, not to create, because we do have a network, but to create an environment, there we go, where those who do take our courses can benefit from this network, can easily get internships, can easily access perhaps an academic degree, or can easily justify being upskilled, towards obtaining a visa to one country or the other. I'm just taking examples of things that have actually happened. To be honest, I did not anticipate this kind of influence of our certificates of completion. But they do have this much value. They do open doors, and we are very proud of these, and therefore put all sorts of efforts to keep this value always increasing. All right. So these trainings we provide earn you one of these certificates. There is often the question of, okay, so where is it recognized? The value of this certificate is as valuable as the content of the courses and myself, and the fact that what the training that I provide is not, how can I say, is known to universities like the University of Montpellier in France, CPUT in South Africa, in how do you call it, International Space University in Strasbourg, a couple of entities like the Gabonese Space Agency, the South African Space Agency, the Egyptian Space Agency. I think I'm forgetting a few companies in Nigeria and Ghana. Basically, it is known. The content is known, and my value is known and recognized. And the more people take the course, the heavier it becomes. But what will never be compromised is its quality. It has to keep increasing. And like I said, we're very proud of this. They do open doors, more doors than I personally imagined. So, how about products? Besides training, we have access to some level of satellite imagery and AIS data, of course, not yet provided by infrastructure we own, but other infrastructure via partnerships. So we do have partnerships that allow us to provide satellite images of certain resolutions, AIS data, and in terms of data intelligence, image analysis, image intelligence, predictive models, data cross correlations and forecast and security intelligence. All these through partnerships. But we are actively working on acquiring our own infrastructure. This is a huge top priority for NMD. But these products and services can already be provided with the help of partners, foreign partners. All right. You listening, it really doesn't matter your field of expertise. You have a role to play. You do have a role to play in a space mission that would be designed and a satellite designed and built for Cameroon. Because you may not be listening or watching this webinar from Cameroon, you may be watching it from some other part of Africa or some other part of the world, but a satellite that is part of a mission that is operated from Cameroon definitely has a role to play, at least within the sub-region, at least. If I consider that a country that like Gabon has quite a magnificent ground station and a great relationship with Cameroon, one can imagine that Cameroon would not need to invest in that magnitude of a ground station. You know, and I know that Gabon is busy with a nano satellite project that is in development, but it would be a natural, quote unquote, natural collaboration to have both satellites serving both countries' interests run from such a ground station. And again, there are other countries, and we can put this to service across the borders, right? It can also serve as a platform to learn about related aspects, like legal aspects. How do you design laws around your national space activity? It is not an easy question, and these are questions that are of interest. That alone is a huge topic of research for the academics in the legal sector, and this can be greatly enhanced by such projects. So everyone has a role to play. However, you need to first get trained, and then you can make a meaningful contribution. Now, getting trained doesn't mean you're going back to do a whole university degree altogether again. For what we're trying to do, while that is important, it is not a hindering factor. We have made available a number of trainings for free. If you subscribe to our Telegram channel, you will find there a pre-recorded course called Introduction to Space Mission Design. This course is for anybody, really. Even if you don't have a technical background, this will give you a great introduction to what space missions are about, right? You can also find these courses on our YouTube channel, but the advantage using the subscribing to the Telegram channel is that you can take the quizzes related to the courses. Unfortunately, YouTube does not have such a functionality, at least not yet, but on Telegram, you will find all the quizzes, and you'll be able to check, if you really understood different chapters, different videos of different chapters, right? There's also a course called Space Mission Management Mindset Model, where I took the model, the way space missions are managed, and I packaged it as a model that you can use to manage other projects, right? It's there for free. you can acquire the knowledge for free. Okay, and then a bit more technical is Introduction to Orbital Mechanics and Satellite Trajectories. Now, when I say technical, what do I mean? If you have high school physics, you're fine. If you have high school physics, you can take this course and understand what's going on. Now, the material is there for free. You can acquire the knowledge for free, but to get one of our certificates of completion, like this one, you need to pass an exam, and you need to pass this exam with a minimum of 90%, because there needs to be no ambiguity as to whether or not you know what you're talking about when you address these subjects. And this is one of the reasons why our certificates of completion are worth what they are worth. Once you have gone through our course, you know your stuff. So you can watch, you can quote unquote attend, you can consume these videos, you can watch them over and over again as many times as you want. You can answer the quizzes, you can ask questions. That's the other advantage in the Telegram channel. You can ask questions that will directly land in the forum and have answers basically immediately, because I will personally receive notification on my phone and be able to answer. And with that, there's basically no excuse, to not make it with at least 90% for any exam that you take on any NMD exam that you take. You just need to book the exam when you feel and we have exams every month end. At the end of every month, there are exams. The next session for April, is on the 30th of April, right? So feel free to attend any one course that you want. Make sure you grind into it. Make sure you know every aspect of it during the month. Book yourself an exam for the end of the month. Get a certification of completion, and now you can prove that you are valuable on the space market, not on the satellite space industry, not only locally in Cameroon, but I mentioned earlier, everywhere else where this certificate is known and recognized. So this is for the learning that is free and available online on these channels. But then there are trainings that are practical, that for having tried before, because I was looking for a way to make access easier. I tried to make these ones free too, but they don't have the same value. It is not really possible to fully make it autonomously free online. It has to be live sessions for it to really make sense. So practical trainings on how to design a satellite and how to design a space mission, these ones are free and scheduled again once a month. The next set, so there is one on the 23rd and the other is on the 24th of April. You can book, but you need, in order to take the course of how to design a satellite, you need to have at least completed Introduction to Space Mission Design. In order to do how to design a space mission, you need to have at least completed Introduction to Orbital Mechanics and Satellite Trajectories. These are mentioned in the chat box. I've put the links to the Telegram channel, the YouTube channel, and also the page where you can go and book any of these exams, right? Thank you for your attention. I hope we are still together. Yes, okay, I see in the chat box. Now I have access to the chat box. Fantastic. Okay, in this same chat box, you will see there is, like I said earlier, the link to the NMD Telegram channel, the link to the YouTube channel, so you can subscribe and never miss one of these videos. There's weekly lives that are streamed on LinkedIn, YouTube, and on Telegram. Um, Today, I thought it would be good to give something to those who managed to attend the webinar. So if I have put a coupon code there, it's called special 2450, which means that if you book for any exam today, you have it at half the price. And the link is the link of NMD courses. Now, is it how can I say, is it any risk really? I don't think so, in the sense that you really schedule the best way to watch the videos and take the courses that are available, the best way for your time, your availability. You have a whole month to do it. You pick one and you focus on it. You complete it. You make sure you really master it. Like I said earlier, the space for questions in case you have any doubts on anything, and then you take your exam at the end of the month. No problem. And in case you are more technical and you want to attend a training, and perhaps you feel uh, you need to first complete one of the prerequisites, then you do it and you can book for the next month. So it's until the end of today. It's I think I set it on a clock, so I think around midnight it's not going to be active anymore. But in any case, just let me know if this is of interest to you. All right, I think I'm done with my presentation. Now is the time for questions and answers. If there are any questions, please feel free. Now is the time. You can write, or you can unlock your microphone and ask a question.
Hello.
Hello, Mr.
Yes,
Nova.
yes, Dr. Tadadjo.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
So I have a couple of questions, but fortunately, most of them have been answered through the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, because I am really concerned about the issue of capacity building with respect to the fact that the space sector is growing really fast globally, and I think it would be good to look into ways on how we can be part of this move. But I am concerned that in the African continent, there is still an issue when it comes to capacity building. But luckily, NMD provides a lot of trainings and courses and exams, which is actually very interesting. But then I am concerned, the free courses that are provided by NMD, are the exams, do the exams also provide certification like the sample you showed us, or is the certification only for the technical trainings? Yeah, that would be my first question. And my second question is, as we look into going towards the space sector, according to your extensive experience, what do you think is Africa's needs in relation to the space sector? Is it in technology? Is it in handling space-related data? Because at the end of the day, I don't think all African nations would be able to have their own autonomous satellite missions. Even if they will, I think it wouldn't be within the same era. So for the meantime, let's say towards towards successful satellite missions. Okay, I'm asking this question from Tanzania. So, for example, in Tanzania, we do not have satellite missions. We do not have ground stations. We we are not even a member of the UN corpus. So to us, space is completely a new thing. But now we are exposed. So which direction should we take in preparation for the future? So I think that would be my second question. Right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much. So if I can just make sure I understood them well, the first question is how do the free courses are the free courses such that once you've taken the exam, well, the content is free, but you have to pay for the exam. But the question is, do these exams also provide certification, just like the
Yes,
technical
sir.
trainings that are live? Okay. And then the second question
Yes.
is, on the African continent, it's a bit like, what is the priority list of things to focus on when it comes to space missions? Is it the hardware? Is it the data? You know, what comes first? What should we be doing first? With the example of Tanzania, for which it's still rather new, and the question would therefore be, we start with what? Did I understand it correctly?
Yes, sir. Perfectly.
Okay. The first question, the answer is yes. The NMD certificate I showed was for the course. Let me go back. You see, there's a course, the first one, Introduction to Space Mission Design. The content is free, but the moment you pass the exam with more than with minimum 90%, you get this. This is what Mr. Kazim did. Introduction to Space Mission Design. He said, for completing the course Introduction to Space Mission Design on NMD courses. That was actually that one. He also later on completed the how to design a satellite and how to design a space mission trainings, right? So yes, all of those come with their with the certificate of completion. Yes. So for the second question, that answers the first. Yes. Are you satisfied?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I am
Okay.
satisfied.
The second question is a very interesting one. Now, at the beginning of the webinar, I don't know if you had arrived yet. Probably you did. I'm not sure. But I mentioned that if you take the example of what's going on in Ukraine now, there is a huge need for sovereign ownership of space infrastructure. Believe you me, a lot of the security aspects of Africa, if I take security alone, I mean, I've touched on all these domains, and space data contributes, but most of this space data does not come from African-owned satellites. You see, so from a strategic point of view, it is very important that there be African-owned satellites. Now, is it a matter of each country owning its own? I don't think so. I don't think it is necessary, because the relationships between African countries are pretty good. They're pretty good, at least so far, and I don't see them deteriorating to a certain level in the near future. But the magnitude of any potential deterioration of relationship between African countries would hardly hit the level where we get things like what we're facing, not only in Africa, in Cameroon, but other countries in Africa, where you can't access things like flour to make bread. You know, this is a basic thing that we would hope we don't have to face, supposing for example, one country is providing one African country is providing another African country with flour. That's just an example. The Dangote refinery, the Dangote oil refinery, that was recently inaugurated. I'm going to take the relationship between Cameroon and Nigeria. I don't think that things could get so bad that if, for example, the crude oil from Cameroon is being refined in Nigeria and then sent back, that relationship will stop because of some conflict. Now, that's not impossible, but if we have a shared space resource, that should still stay in activity. You know, I don't think that the relationship between Cameroon and Gabon could get to the place where Gabon will say you don't operate your space missions from our ground station anymore, right? But all of the space activity in Africa is under the umbrella of the African Space Agency. I don't know if you know of the African Space Agency, but there is an African Space Agency that is with headquarters in Egypt. And
yes, I've heard about that.
the idea is to make sure that each and every country's space activities complement other space activities in the continent and also advance the African space policy and African space strategy. So we are at the point where, on a continental scale, we are at the point where we're just about getting to a place where countries with low space capabilities within Africa will start turning to other African countries with more space capabilities and expertise. You see what I mean? For now, it's been a case where an African country will turn to maybe a European country or Russia or China or you know France or Italy and things like this. But because they want technology transfer from these countries, they want these countries to accompany the Japan, you know, to accompany them in building, say, their first satellite, right? So that has been going on for a while, and there has been enough technology transfer that we are at the point where a country like South Africa, a country like Egypt, can now accompany a country like Cameroon or Tanzania in their first space project. This is of paramount importance, right? And it's a great thing to be at least at that level, so that it can speed up this sovereignty
The process.
of ownership of space infrastructure without it being an issue that each country must have their own. You know, if we look at sub-regions, you know, SADC, ECOWAS, CEMAC, you don't need to have each of the countries of the sub-region to have a satellite. You know, couple could and drive certain aspects of space, you know, in that respect. Now, from an African point of view, you ask what should one start with? I would say we start with the end. So start with application. Use what one currently has access for free while we do have this access to optimize the application aspect of it. So for example, I take your example in Tanzania. I don't know what are the agricultural activities or you know, what are the challenges that you may face in one or the other of the sectors that I mentioned earlier. But if you look at the Copernicus project, you can have access to, I think, around 10 is it 10 meter 10-meter resolution images for free, and you can start looking at, you know, how might this satellite data help me, and with the one I have for free, what could I possibly do if I had better resolution images? But you can already optimize processes in terms of applications of satellite data, while the space infrastructure projects into building the actual satellites and launching them and operating them are being developed, such that eventually at some point there will be very good resolution images available for various African countries. I hope I answered the questions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Quite generously. Thank you very much.
No problem. All right, so if there's nothing else, I'm going to close the webinar. So thank you all, and